is like art, you know. If it was so easy, I wouldn't have any client. No one would be coming to me. They would all be training the dogs at home. You know, it literally does not work like that. Even with like intervention, even with hands-on training, using a combination of methods, because it's like art. You have to practice and practice to get better. So I have to get the dog physically under control to make it easy for the dog, for the owners to follow through with more training. And again, doing less and less pressure. It becomes less and less intense by the second, you know, once we get them following directions first. A lot of the clients, when they come to me, these dogs are redirecting towards them. They are afraid of their own dog because the dog will get so agitated and turn around and bite them. So they have to understand how to get the dog to stop doing that first. Otherwise, nothing is possible. When people come to me, 99.9% of them, they are not questioning any of my methods. They're ready to handle me the leash and let me do what I do because they have seen it over and over again, and they already know they can trust me. They can handle it. They have confidence in just letting me do it. Now, there's still the 0.1% of people that are a little bit unsure. They just, you know, they're curious. They're maybe new followers. They sign up quickly. So the thing is, when I first introduce a prong collar, or any method, right? Any type of method, corrected. I tell my clients why I think it's appropriate, why I think they should do it, what the outcome would be if I use that method, what from my experience, like how much that's going to help the dog. And I tell them I have, you know, obviously I'm here because they trust me. I have been doing this for a long time. I have helped a lot of dogs. And I explain to the client first, okay, your dog is going to probably, it's going to freak out. It's going to scream. It's going to be really afraid. But the reason that they do that is they're really afraid of what's going to happen. They're anticipating that me putting my hands on them is going to hurt them. So it's more that anticipation, you know, that causes all the fear. But I know from my experience, this is going to be the fastest way for your dog to overcome that fear of me so that I can work close up with you and demonstrate the training, which is so important. Like I said, dog training is like art. If I'm not hands-on, close up to the owner practicing with them, which would not be possible if the dog is actively trying to get at me. But I explain to them how it's going to help the dog, and then I make sure that they are okay with it first. And then I also explain if I don't do it, what can they expect from the training? So it's the same thing with introduce a prong collar, for example. Like if someone comes to me, I don't have to use a prong collar on any dog. Like I don't have to use it, you know. I will tell them what to expect if they don't use a prong collar. So I also explain why the prong collar is not used to punish the dog or to correct the dog. I show them how I use it with just the sensation of the collar to communicate with them. As a matter of fact, I don't tell my clients to put a prong collar on the dog before I take over the dog. Like I don't tell them to bring the dogs with a prong collar on just because the dog is aggressive. The only thing that I do different than what they come with is put a slip lead over the dog's head if I feel like the dog is going to pull out of the collar that they have on. Otherwise, I'll take them with whatever they have on. I take them over with the harness. I take them over with a flat collar. Whatever they already have on, I'll just take over the leash and work from there. Other than if I feel like the collar is going to come loose and the dog is going to run out, I will then put a slip lead. And then once the dog is calm, I introduce them to the prong collar. And so basically, I'm explaining to the clients that I'm not using any tool at all to punish the dog. Everything is to communicate with the dog. And I demonstrate, and it's amazing to see that you have these dogs that are really out of control, lunging, barking, pulling, you know, cannot follow directions at all. And I put a prong collar on them, calm, when they're calm, and I teach them to follow directions. And within just a couple of minutes, I'm using 2 fingers to guide the dog, to pass by other dogs, to pass by people, to sit, to follow directions, to be right next to me. So again, there is no pain, there's no correction. They see very minimum amount of pressure. It's a line of communication that it's easy for the dogs to understand. So as they see that, everybody else in the class is like, I ask them, do you want to try one of these collars? And everybody's like, yes, 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 yes. If I have a person that doesn't want to try it, that's okay. It's very rare. I don't think, it's literally almost nobody. Like maybe one person out of like 1,000 people say, I don't really want to use a prong collar. And that's okay. They understand they're not going to get the same level of result. Now, of course, this is not food. It's not necessarily reward, but it is just the sensation of the collar. There's ways for, it's like a tap on the shoulder, you know, but even more effective for the dog. It's a way that the dog naturally responds really well to this tool, and you get their attention, and then you're able to follow up with commands. So let's just say if a dog comes to me, they have no training at all, the prong collar is going to serve as a line of communication just for leash manners, just to get the dog to follow directions, to kind of like not pull, to be able to just, you know, follow the lead with the minimum amount of pressure. But then I'm going to tell this client, you have to go home and work on sit, down, come, tricks. Just train your dog's mind to follow directions from you using positive reinforcement, because this is going to make your dog happier to work with you. They're going to be more interested, in working and learning, and you're being more fair with them. Like they're learning what you expect from them. So before you reinforce like sit and down with the pressure. But most dogs that come to class, they actually know the basics, like they know sit and down, but they don't listen to that when they're out in public and there's a lot of distractions. They already trained their minds that when they are around these distractions, they have to be on the alert, on high alert and on defensive all the time. So they are not going to be able to relax, to sit and down and come when you call them. Literally just a line of communication that is actually very soft. If you use correctly, if it's fit correctly, the right type, of course they can use any tool the wrong way. I mean, the only reason they wouldn't want to use it is just because they're afraid of what other people are going to think. But after they see it, they cannot say, well, it's literally hurting my dog. Even if a dog is unsure of it at first, because it's something that does get their attention. And so some dogs are not used to following directions. It's just a matter of conditioning them to the collars. I'm the first person to tell my clients that my classes are not the ideal training environment for the dogs, right? So my classes, that's not the place that I'm setting up there every single week for the same people to come in over and over again. That's not what I do. The only reason I do these classes is because of the big need for that type of training that I do. And a lot of people, they don't really realize that that's how many dogs really get put down, every single day, and they get given up on. And so when I say that, or my followers say I'm saving the dog's life, they think that it's literally just, oh, this particular dog will be put down, but they don't realize that it's actually a fact. These people, if they don't get the training that they need, they will have to give up on their dogs. And so a lot of these clients, they have the dogs for a long time, but they are losing hope. They're really just losing hope. They feel like no one can help them. And it's just, and the other thing too, even the people that are not already thinking about giving up on the dog, there's only so much that they can take before they're like, this dog is just a liability, it's just too much for them. Or the dog actually does something bad, that then they have to give up on the dog, or they just become scared of owning that dog, So my training is it's basically to equip the owners to have the dogs under control, to stop those current bad behaviors and also to prevent new ones.
Yeah.
And again, if there was an alternative, method, then I would like to see it. That's the other thing. I don't consider putting the prong collar as a sacrifice to the dog because of everything that I just explained. But still, if there's a better way to get these results without using any type of tool, then we would like to see that, And again, not in a controlled environment. We're talking about, I pick a dog because it can be any dog. It can be a dog that's literally so aggressive and reactive that just learn to become like that because they grew up in an apartment. Now they're a year old, they're really aggressive, 2 years old, and these owners have to literally drag them out and hide, and they can pass by anybody. I want to see you get that dog to be able to pass by dogs and people using only positive reinforcement.
I would love to see that too.
Well, just use a slow approach down, just give the dog more time. And I would say my goal here is not to get this dog to just warm up to me, because I know that can be possible. Yeah, even giving them all the ears that they need, some of these dogs that just would not work at all.
No.
But the thing is this, right? Let's just say that there's a dog that is mild. Because mostly I'm talking about the really aggressive dogs that, no, it's not going to work. I have to get them under control. Some of the dogs that come to my classes, if I just gave them a treat and sat down for 10 minutes, they would warm up to me and they would be fine with me. Right? Mm-hmm. That's fine. Maybe, let's say maybe 40% of the dogs would actually do that to me. Now, the next time that a person comes by, they would go back to being reactive the same way. Yeah. And now here's the problem. This is why it wouldn't work. So I tell them okay, so a trainer can come to your house and she'll see it. I can make a video. This dog was being reactive and going crazy. Now I'm here for just 10 minutes, gave them a treat, and now they're completely fine with me. What happens when another person is passing by that dog? Is that dog just still, calm and relaxed? Is it reactive? When they're reactive, what are you going to do in that particular situation? You're going to ask a total stranger to stop for 10 minutes, give your dog treats every single time you're around a stranger or a new dog. That's why that approach would not work to rehabilitate the dog. The reason is this, right? So let's say I go to a client's house every day for a few weeks. Not every day, let's say a couple times a week for a few weeks. And I get this dog that was highly reactive, did not let anyone come into the house. Now they're all excited to see me. They're wagging their tail, they're happy. But how is that going to work when someone just comes over and they don't even like dogs and they don't have the time? Or it could be literally out in public. Of course, you're going to run into these people. But even like someone comes to your house, some people have kids. They have people with disabilities that live with them. You know, you're not going to be able to use that approach every single time. Now, what really becomes the problem is every time that you cannot reinforce the good behavior that you're wanting your dog to learn, they are learning to practice the bad behaviors. So they're basically regressing every single time. So my training of going there every week for a few weeks would literally have done nothing for that dog other than it got the dog to like me, but it did not help the dog in any way at all. The next person that comes to just deliver a package, your dog is completely out of control. And can you stay here for 10 minutes and give my dog a treat? I promise he's gonna lunge like you. No, I'm in a hurry, gotta go. So your dog reacted, lunged at the door, barked at this person, and then went home. Your dog learns the next time someone comes over, they have to be ready to do it again. Unless they spend several minutes with them, or even some again, this approach wouldn't work for every dog, but even again for the ones that does work, it would not work as a solution to rehabilitate the dog. So instead, I would teach my clients how to be able to get the dog under control and reinforce using balanced methods. You can use positive reinforcement, but first, the dog cannot be lunging at them. A trainer could come and get the dog to like them after give them treats and sitting there for a while. And then the next person comes over, the dog is completely out of control again. The owner is going to keep doing this cycle for many, many months or years. The dog gets a little bit better, learns to like some people, but the dog still has the main problem. No stranger can come over without the dog being reactive. Yeah. So what I would teach my clients is the first training session, get the dog under control. So we do this by redirecting them. There's leash pressure. Tell the dog, no, you cannot do that. But instead of just making the dog sit there and just be quiet because they're afraid because they got corrected, we start to get the dog to focus on other things. So now the dog is on the leash when people come over, and instead of correcting them, we redirect them. So now we focus on leave it, come, sit, down, heel. So when someone is coming over, we're already being proactive with getting the dog's mind to focus on us, so they don't focus on the trigger. So now we're kind of training their mind to not associate that when someone comes over, they have to be ready to attack the door and bite someone. Now they're ready. We're conditioning them to focus on us instead. So basically what you're doing is you're preventing them from building negative association with someone new coming to the house. Because the alternative is your hands are tied whenever they don't have treats, whenever they don't spend several minutes with your dog to warm up to them. Your dog is building negative association with them. They're getting angry, frustrated, and they're practicing that mentality that when someone comes over, it's bad, and they have to be, on defense mode. Like I teach my clients to not make the dog just sit there and obey just because you told them, and if they don't do it, you're gonna correct them. It's not that at all. So it's only really, the correction is really just to get the dog under control, and then the rest is following up with redirecting, which is different than correction. You're redirecting to use the minimum amount of pressure possible to get the dog's attention. Yeah. It's so funny when someone says that they don't have time to be talking to me about training methods, or even, showing how they would train, showing anything that they do. I posted literally this morning that I was going to go live. So they see everything else that I post. I don't understand why they didn't see that I was going to go live. Interesting. They see everything else, but they don't see that I'm going to go live, and this is their opportunity to literally come here and tell me. Maybe they can show us some videos. They can pull up their phone, their computer, and show us some evidence of their training. It's because everybody who have seen for themselves and they have spent the entire class, not even a single person is coming forward and saying everything that you did was wrong, or most of what you did was wrong. Everybody understands what I did. They understand what goes on in the class. They understand the context. And if those people all understand, and these are everybody from dog owners to veterinarians to animal control officers, literally my classes are full of all different classes of people, different levels of dog experience with dogs. If they can understand what I do, wouldn't anyone who is against what I do want to also go and see for themselves?
How can you follow up with these people, all of them, to see if your methods are effective for long term?
Well,
I
so
mean, this,
that's a very good point. And so again, this is not a question for my clients because they spend 3 hours with me and they do understand exactly your concerns. So they do not have the same concerns as you. So again, if you're able to be at my class, you would not have the same, you would not be asking me this question right now. You would already understand because my training is not a matter of just suppressing the behavior. There's a lot more that goes on. Now, my videos are not designed to teach people how to train dogs. It's designed to show people that I can get just very out of control dogs under control. But my classes in person, those are actually designed to teach people how to make the dog feel better. Here is actually a very small number of the dogs that I work with. But anyone can say they can just get, anyone can do what I do, and that's not true. Even if you was just getting the dog to comply, most people can still not handle just aggressive dogs. So that's why I highlight that and I showcase that more often. But my training classes, I do teach people it's a lot more than just correcting the behavior. It's definitely a lot more than just suppressing the behavior and dominating the dog, anything like that. It's really not about that at all. The only thing that you see me doing is a dog that is very strong-willed, physically strong, very determined with what they're doing. They're already very out of control, and that an approach where I would just give them treats and give them space and not put them in that position wouldn't really necessarily make that dog be able to handle those situations that they have to face on a daily basis. If you had a dog like that and you had already tried everything else, which we're going to come down to my second point. So the point is, if you had done all those things and it didn't work, I really truly feel like you'd feel like one of my clients and you would be like, I at least want to see what he has to offer in person, and that's basically why my clients come to me. Now you can say, no, but there's other methods that are effective. Then we would like to see that. We have not been able to see that. Out of all these trainers that talk, if a dog is in this exactly scenario that I gave you, a dog that is 4 months or more into misbehaving, very reactive, very uncomfortable passing by dogs and people, they cannot face that, and they have already been trying positive reinforcement. I want to see one of these trainers that say that they can fix those dogs, be able to help that dog without using a prong collar, without correcting them, without using even a slip lead. They don't want to use, they
right.
want to use a. I want to see them be able to do that and help their dog. If we saw that, we wouldn't be having this argument. They would be proving that I'm wrong. Without saying that, you just don't understand this because you don't have that dog. You're not dealing with that problem, right?
You're right. You're right. I don't have a dog like that, and I'm not dealing with a dog like that.
A video, any particular case that I worked with that you would like me to talk about?
Well, there's a little dog that defecated.
Okay, I can talk
That,
about there's plenty of dogs that defecate, so I can talk about that. So again, keeping in mind that these dogs are currently on a daily basis dealing with these issues that I'm talking about. So besides the fear that you see where they defecate out of fear, the owner is struggling with not being able to take them to the vet. The vet telling them you have to euthanize your dog because these dogs sometimes they have medical things like a skin issue that they have to be treated. The vet cannot touch them. The vet cannot vaccinate them. They cannot examine them. And sometimes you can avoid it for a certain extent and maybe only do it once or twice. Now, they also have other dogs at home that they're dealing with that they're fighting. They have to get it under control. They have, again, these situations of whether they live in an apartment. There's many scenarios where if the dog is currently aggressive and reactive and lunging and physically out of control where the owner cannot hold them, they bring them to my class. So what you see happen
right.
is a dog that has a lot of fear, right? So what I'm trying to do is basically, and again, it is a very effective method. It's not easy to watch. The reason that the owners and my clients are okay with it is because it is actually very effective. Now, the reason that the dogs defecate is not because I'm choking them and hurting them. It's literally because that's how intense the fear for them is. So again, I understand that it looks hard. I get it. It's not something that I enjoy doing. I understand that it's very difficult for the dog, but also I also understand that it only lasts for seconds, and the evidence is clear. People are there for 3 hours, and I do this all the time. So a dog is very, very afraid. All I'm doing is holding them still, and I'm not putting a prong collar to do this. Some dogs already come with different types of collars on, but all that I'm doing is literally this, placing my hand on them. And they're pulling back and they're trying to avoid it at all costs because they're so terrified of what's going to happen to them. Now, the reason that I do it is because I know that the moment that they feel the hand going on them, and you can see that in my videos, people are going to say that the dog just feel like they don't have any way out and they just shut down, but that is not true. The dog freezes for a little bit because it is something very intense for a few seconds. But once I pet them and they realize they're not going to get hurt, they start to decompress. And within a few minutes later, the dog is able to start to move around the class and they're able to follow directions. When I touch them again, they're no longer afraid of the hand. And when I introduce the same approach to other people, this means when other people are going to get closer to this dog, I'm not going to handle them the leash, and the dog won't be as afraid anymore. So they never go to that process ever again. It's a one single time, and it is. And again, unless there was proof that what I do makes the dog worse, which it doesn't, that without me placing my hand on the dog remains extremely uncomfortable of people being close to them, and that means it becomes very difficult for the owners to take them to the vet, to pass by people, to actually make any type of progress. Even if you're using positive reinforcement, after I do that training, it becomes so much easier for them to do it. Before that, they are at square one. They are with a dog that they can't handle on a daily basis. And so that's why you see the dogs doing that.
Okay.
And
Well,
and again, I feel like it's all me just saying this, but unless you see it for yourself, to be completely honest, my clients that come to me, they don't look up for trainers that they don't feel confident in, because just trainers, I can guarantee you, with a dog that defecates when I touch them, they would not lose their fears just because you give them treats. They would not. You would never work. They're so afraid that unless someone really intervenes with that in a deeper level, which is what I do, they don't make progress. And out of all those people, why don't you see them all coming forward and saying that the dog became more traumatized? It is a very effective approach. And I wouldn't be doing it if I was receiving feedback that said otherwise. But my feedback from my clients is always that the dog is improving. It does not mean that the dog is completely rehabilitated, but I do improve their behavior to a certain level that they have never seen before, and it's permanent. I have to show them more in a single training class. And I do not say that it's ideal, but sometimes I feel like it's better than the dog being euthanized, and that because I think overall balanced methods is better. And if more people get educated on that and they use balanced methods, the dogs won't get so out of control that they don't need that type of training that I'm providing them. My goal is really to educate people to that level. It's not to say, let your dog get to that level and then bring it to dog daddy so I can bring them down. That's not what we're trying to do, but we already have this problem at hand. All these dogs that get given up on a daily basis and get euthanized, it's mostly dogs that have behavioral issues. Even if someone has to rehome a dog, if a dog is not aggressive, not reactive, it's healthy, it's easy to adopt those dogs out. But when you have these dogs that are misbehaving like this, think about all these dogs that you see in my videos. If they get to go to a shelter, no one else wants to adopt them. They're there for life, or they're there to be euthanized. So getting people to at least understand not only helps them keep the dog, but if they ever needed to rehome this dog, it will be easy for them to pass it on to a new family. And I keep that in mind when I do my trainings, like really equipping people to, be able to handle these dogs. And I always start with the slower approach possible for those particular dogs that I work with. I don't just say, I'm going to start immediately correcting a dog. It's just that some of the dogs you cannot move from square one without first stopping that lunging and the aggression. And I know people like to say that it's possible and make it believe that it's possible, but it's really not for some dogs. Some dogs, they will bark at you for 2 hours straight. They're going to be so exhausted from barking and lunging, even if you were to give them food or treats or sit there for 2 hours. And so if think about it, even if a trainer was to use that method and then it's not effective, these clients are going to feel like, oh, this is not getting anywhere. They're going to give up on the training. So we have to, bring that into consideration as well. If the end goal is really to save a relationship between the owner and the dog, and also to save the dog's life. But hopefully, I can see you in one of my classes, and you can see it for yourself.
Yeah, I might do that. Maybe be on the inside rather than the outside protesting.
Yes, that would be ideal. I think everything in life, balance is good. I think it's just like
Yeah.
when you completely want to, I mean, and it's getting kind of like worse and worse too, because like I was saying earlier, I think that's like, the two different extreme sides where like people that a little bit maybe too, which again, I hate saying that because actually people get that impression with my videos and I'm not like that at all. But there are trainers who are actually more like the dog has to comply and they have to do exactly how we tell them. And then there's the people who is like completely enabling the dog just because they don't even want to say no. Like you cannot even tell your dog, hey, no, because this is negative and this is gonna make your dog, not trust you. And it's just like again, too extreme on both ends. But I think creating a good balance, which when I can get started fresh with a dog that is not aggressive and doesn't have any severe issues, I'm going to use balanced method, but it's going to be really that balanced. You're going to use mostly positive reinforcement, but you're going to use also techniques that will reinforce things that would basically teach the dog how to live in society, how to fit into society, and be able to adapt to handling different situations that sometimes are not even natural to them. My seminar is really very complex because we go over everything from dog training to the psychology to how to handle
Yep.
specific situations, whether it's like someone coming to your house or if you're passing by a dog, or when to let you
Right.
interact with, so a
Yep.
new person or a new dog. Safety tools like a muzzle, why the muzzle is important.
Yep.
Letting the owner feel like they can physically communicate with the dog. When I say physically, it's not that you're physically actually having to hold the dog back, it's that you learn
Right.
that there's ways for you to communicate with your dog that you're not. I say you have them physically under control, but actually you are you're controlling their mind. You're communicating with them
Right.
in a way
Yep.
that you don't have to
Exactly.
physically hold them back, but they
Right.
physically hold themselves back because you learn to communicate with them. And so it doesn't matter if you have a dog that's 2 pounds or 150 pounds, and you can do it in a very safe and easy way. And so basically
Right.
that's what I teach my clients, so that when they go home, they really feel like, I want them to feel like this is just a dog. I got my dog
Right.
on a leash. I understand my dog. I understand how to communicate, giving my dog guidance on how to handle
Yeah.
the situation. So
And see,
everything
with
you
your
want
videos,
to
Augusto, though, that's the thing, though. When you first take the leash, that's what people I see get most confused about. They think you're pulling and doing all this stuff with the dog. You're just doing what I do. I hold the leash out away from me so the dog doesn't bite me. But at that same time, I'm still just giving that calm, positive energy to the dog, letting them know they can calm down. And that's what they're doing. They're going from just so fear-based to, okay, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I guess I can calm down. And that's when they start to calm down. And that's when you're able to then give them direction and
right,
work with them. And that's what people get confused about. It's not, you're not hurting the dogs at all. I'm not hurting dogs.
right,
We're trying to get to their psyche in about 2 or 3 minutes or
yeah,
less. And that's not easy to do. You have to let them do what they're doing at the end of the leash till they get to the point where they're like, I see people go, oh, that dog's just totally broken down now. That's why it just surrendered. No, that's not it. The dog is feeling what's being given to them. That's a big
yeah.
difference.
Well, see, the other thing too is that it's very different when you're training, a puppy like this, and then like a dog that people already like the dog does not have a good foundation, and sometimes it's not the owner's
Right.
fault. I mean, the dogs sometimes they don't
Yeah.
have they live in the middle of nowhere, or they live in a shelter. They're born in a shelter. They get surrendered, and so they already come from not having a good beginning, and so they need
Right.
rehabilitation,
Exactly.
and it's very different. Um, and you can't do that unless you're getting the dog to a calmer level first, and then being able to,
Right.
directions from there. I definitely encourage people to like. I think all together as a community, that have to be a lot more done to just educate people on what
Yes.
dogs are before they get a
Exactly.
dog. Before they get a dog, but the problem
Yes.
is that there's already millions of people with dogs that don't know what they're doing with
Right.
dogs.
Right.
So the problem is already way ahead of us. Like we can't just ignore all the
Right.
dogs and then just focus on like focus on like the
Yep.
puppies and the dogs that
Yep.
don't need that. We
Exactly
need to
right.
focus on both. We need to focus on,
Yep.
if I see someone with a puppy like this, the right methods to train this dog, socializing the dog, getting them to understand what a dog is. And then what I do, on the other hand, is rehabilitating those relationships, not even just the dog, but like the relationship that, you know, just people, they have no idea what they have at the end of the leash. It's just a wild animal that and they're both confused. That's the sad part. It's like the dog is confused and the owner is just as confused. So bringing clarity to them on like how the dog thinks and how they handle different situations. You know, my classes are designed to teach people, and my videos are not. And again, the only reason I say this is because there's some trainers that they are very good at just speaking in the videos. You know, that's not really my style. So I want to focus on doing more of that, but I'm good at just handling the dogs, handling the people in person and talking to them. I feel like even if I was working with one dog, if I was to cover everything, you know, it'd be a lot. I have to think about every dog in different scenarios. Really prefer this last person to be someone that is pure positive reinforcement, to have an open discussion on different methods and what they would suggest instead, and what they think I could do differently, or what they would do differently. I would like to invite you to join the live and have a conversation. So I think my recommendation for anyone would be to keep an open mind, just like I would be open minded to learn different ways and different approaches. I think everybody should be also open-minded to learn different ways and different methods and get to understand them. I think obviously, you know, even with comparing like balanced training to positive reinforcement only, but kind of like there's also two different extremes where people there are a little more aggressive with the approach, which is kind of interesting because people think, through my videos, a lot of people think that I'm more aggressive than like the average, you know, balanced trainer. But I think it's just, and I say this from you know, the feedback that I get in my classes, including from other trainers there, that it only looks like that in the video and the way that the videos are, and the videos that I highlight, the cases that I highlight, and that in person I'm actually a lot more gentle with the dogs than most trainers are. So trainers always think that I'm actually pretty soft on, like, instead of correcting the dog, I'm redirecting them and finding ways to redirect. But you guys, you know, in the videos, you see a lot more of like that first interaction with the dog, that sometimes there's no easy way to do it. The dogs come very aggressive. As someone who have been training dogs my entire life, I grew up training dogs, I learned on my own. But just like anybody else, I have studied dogs, I have watched videos, I have worked with other trainers, and I have worked with thousands of dogs. So just because I started on my own does not mean that I am just self-taught. I was originally self-taught, but I'm not just like ignoring everybody else and not watching any videos and watching any other trainer. And, you know, obviously you are going to continue to learn, is what I'm saying. So just like anybody else that would start to train, to become a dog trainer, I have watched all the different methods. I have seen different trainers. I have been to dog breeders' kennels with 100 dogs. I have been to shelters with 100 dogs. I have, you know, trained police dogs and rescue dogs and all those different types of handlers to really understand the methods that are effective and what are not effective, and the ones that are effective for some dogs and not effective for other dogs. There's some methods that just like not worth trying because they're gonna help 3 dogs out of 3,000, and the rest are not going to fit into that. So I wouldn't even, you know, recommend that approach. So I try to create that balanced method, which is I'm using the most effective tools, the most effective techniques for all dogs that I work with, and also on learning how to adapt to different dogs. You know, every dog is different, different situations are different. So I do definitely adapt really quickly to what's going on right there in the moment, the dog's personality, and then I implement the best approach, a combination of methods and techniques to work with that dog. But I think that everybody should do the same thing. And again, not just the collar, not just the treats, right? If you can use treats to train your dog and have a complete out of control dog, and use a prong collar and have a complete out of control dog the same way. I think when I say using positive reinforcement, which is basically just a way to get your dog to be the most interested in learning. That's why there's a big argument. Dogs are more interested in learning when they use positive reinforcement, but they also still have to fit into society. They still have to pass by people, pass by dogs. They're not the same as a tiger or bear in a controlled environment, or a whale. They are a dog that's literally facing these distractions on a daily basis that these other animals don't have to. So a method that would make them want to work for us, which is okay to use, would not work when it comes to when they have to actually face reality, when they have to step outside and have a dog barking right at their face, and they have to learn to not bark back, to not fight back, to not lunge at that dog.